which banks do you think are most vulnerable? Which banks, Meredith, do you think are best positioned to adhere to the new rules and possibly benefit from them?
Well, all the top four banks control 2/3 of the consumer loan market. So, I mean, I think everyone's in the same soup. And the top four banks, at least the top three banks, own hedge funds, have material principal trading activities. Proprietary trading activities. So I think everyone's going to be affected. Some of the smaller banks are immune to this or taken out of the equation, protected. But I think the smaller banks are having problems themselves in terms of just overall capital requirements. And it's very expensive to be a small bank these days.
What about looking at a Citibank, a Citigroup versus Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley? I mean, very different banks now. How does reform impact them differently? Who gets hurt more? Who benefits more?
Well, I was with Goldman Sachs management a couple of weeks ago, and what they said was, once they learn the rules, they'll be able to adapt to those rules. Mm-hmm. And you could see that clearly with all the changes with Starbucks and the changes to the equity business in the earlier part of 2000. So they've gone through this change before. It's a proven model of adapting to change. I say they change the donut machine every quarter. They're flexible. For Citi, they're impacted from all sides because they have a consumer business and they have an investment bank capital markets business. They've been less adaptive to change. It's a big, it's a behemoth of an organization and not as streamlined as Goldman. So you would argue that Goldman Citi will have a tougher time from this. It's just from a structural perspective.
Sure. What are the characteristics do you think that will make a bank strong moving forward given this reform?
I think that there's some clear opportunities in the financial markets, and if the banks are not playing a game of defense, which they have been for the past 3 years, those that play a game of offense in terms of the structural changes that are going on within the payments industry, within the global payments industry, those are some exciting businesses. To speak of Citi, for an example, its shining business has been the global payments business. GTS is what they call it. That's been a great business for them. To focus on technology, to focus on how the capital markets will transform over the next 10 years. If they focus on those things and don't get so mired in just what's going to be a messy second half in terms of consumer credit, those are the guys will come up as leaders.